All right. San Juan Social Club. Okay. Well, I just want to thank my best friend Davin for doing this cruise. Man, this is fun. Is everybody having fun? All right, cool. Oh shoot, my screen that I've got here. I didn't mean. Oops, I didn't mean to have this. This is supposed to be the third slide, but here we go. I am Dylan with Paragon Properties, and we have had a couple notable achievements. We got up to a peak of $30 million under assets under management. We've gotten permits that everybody said were impossible to get, and we've had some crazy income on our luxury vacation rentals like nobody else. I mean, we're talking about $100,000 in 1 month on one property. So last year I came and I talked about how to get a multi-million, many million, $300 million property portfolio. And this year is all about doom and gloom and existential threats that could cause you to lose everything that you own. And, you know, make no mistake, even though we've had some challenges this year, we're actually making more money than we made last year, which is astounding. But what we're going to be talking about today is all of the existential threats, or at least the biggest existential threats, how to stop the scam, how to solve the existential threats that could cause us to be utterly destroyed in fire and brimstone on your short-term rental empire. So, the biggest threats, who wants to guess some of the threats that we have? All right, we've got the guests, okay? Airbnb itself is a massive threat to your business. And the last one is the law. So, if as you scale bigger and bigger, you will be finding out that the guests, Airbnb, and the law have thrust us hosts into a tug of war that we didn't ask for, in a game of chance of high stakes poker with no good options between a rock and a hard place. But I've got some great solutions, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. All right, so we're going to preview what we're going to talk about here. We're going to be talking about unruly guests, lawsuit traps, extortion from the guests, Airbnb's aggressive new security and safety team that wants to shut you down, their algorithms that cause people to have dead listings or bad pricing, and regulation compliance, use permits. So let's get into it. All right, so for unruly guests, the biggest thing that everybody knows about is, and actually, you know what? I want to back up. One thing. I want to find out what I want to find out is who here owns properties. All right, cool. Who wants to own properties? All right, nice. Who does Airbnb? Nice, okay, cool. And who wants to? All right, well, by the end of this, maybe you'll change your mind about wanting to do it, but I'm just kidding. Look, and these are the big three. There's some other things, skyrocketing costs, a workforce that doesn't show up, challenges with that, and shifts in the market. But we're going to focus on these ones. So here we're going through, and we're going to start with unruly guests. All right, just finding out how my presentation works, evidently. And here we go. So, unruly guests. You know, everybody probably has heard the horror stories about a party happening in your house, and they're making crazy noise, and then the cops get involved, and they're damaging the property. Another one that some people might not even realize is a potential threat is friendly fraud. Who knows what that is? Okay, yeah, so friendly fraud is like when somebody comes and they say that they're this guest, and in my case, they've even given me a picture of their ID and signed a contract, so I had their signature. And even on my cameras going to the properties, I could see who they were, and they were the person from their ID. But nevertheless, after they stayed in our property to the tune of $5,000, they said that it wasn't them that stayed. In this case, it was Booking.com, and Booking.com works with a merchant processor, Stripe, and Stripe just said, yeah, we don't care. Whenever somebody asks for the money back, we're just going to give them all their money back. And we've actually had to work a crazy amount of work, over all of the issues we've had with Stripe, which is one of the worst processors for Airbnb, especially high-ticket Airbnb. We've got like $20,000 or $40,000 locked up with them that we might not see for 6 months or so, or ever. And we've had to switch merchant processors. And if I could just plug my friend Curtis Nally here, Curtis has been an amazing consultant for us. This is not his primary business anymore, but just all things credit card stacking, loans and things like this. He's just the man. So good guy to talk to and know, and glad he's on the trip. Very good friend of mine. So, yeah, I mean, what's crazy is, I've got some horror stories at this point. Like, I didn't know before that if you rented, that you could have 30 frat boys show up to your house that rented under their parents' profile so that we didn't flag it as, young party kids, and party their asses off, smoking in the house, jumping off the roof into the pool, putting out cigarettes against the house when you show up to talk to them, and then get in a fight with your security and then have Airbnb shut your profile down. But that is possible. And you're going to see some of these things that I'm going to talk about here as the solutions to this. Okay, one of them is SOPs. You and your team are going to have to run on a strong set of standard operating procedures. And what I mean is you're going to have thought through how these things are going to go down and what you're going to do and when. And I have very good SOPs. We're going to get a little bit more into what Airbnb will allow you to do and not do in a little bit with your own property. Cameras. You've got to have cameras on the outside of the property. If you have them on the inside, you'll get your profile taken down. Noise-aware devices. You've got to be able to see these incidents happening ahead of time. And noise-aware is a great product that you can put in the house, but you cannot put it in the rooms. It doesn't measure what the noise is. It just says how loud it is. But nevertheless, they don't want to have it there. And discount prevention team is incredibly important, and that's just what I call my operations team. When guests are saying this is broken, that is broken, I want a discount, my discount prevention team is there to run in and fix it as fast as possible so the guest has no real complaint. So the other solution that I want to talk about here is having a branded niche. For me, my niche is the top luxury vacation rental collection for rich dudes having bachelor parties. And we do bachelorette parties too. And we do a bunch of other things. We have families and people coming in for business and stuff. But that's our main thing, is bachelor parties. And so we get most of them from New York. And having something that's tailored to people, you get to know your customer, you get to know your guest, and you get to figure out what's the real thing that's going to make them happy. Because at the end of the day, these big properties are going to have a lot of little things that are broken on them, that are messed up. But if you solve the person's core problem, what they want to do, help them understand what adventures to do, help them understand what strip clubs to go to, then and provide the reasonable accommodation which is the reason why they booked it, a great place to congregate, then a lot of the issues really go away because you're solving their main problem, their main thing. They want to have a predictable adventure trip in Puerto Rico. Now, next topic I want to talk about is extortion, and this is pretty important. Okay, extortion is one of those things where I think 40 years ago people knew what extortion was, and they were careful not to do it. And now, with all of these reviews and things, and they know that they can just pressure and coerce people and businesses to do things under the threat of giving a bad review, they think that they're just being customers. And that's actually not how it works. That's extortion. If someone says, if you don't give me some money back, I'm going to give you a bad review, that's extortion. And they'll do it in a couple different ways. They'll say, okay, I'm going to give you a bad review. I'm going to tell Airbnb on you and make up stuff to Airbnb. Or they'll try to sick their merchant processor on you. And if it's Stripe, you're kind of screwed. If they bought it, even with Airbnb, if they bought it with Amex, Airbnb won't reverse the merchant processing in general. But if the person bought with Amex, no one is safe. Amex is great for customers, terrible for business owners. And so it literally everything that happens that, like, we've got hurricanes, we've got power failures, those are your fault. Those are your fault. And what you need is a good discount prevention team that makes sure that your generators are running and your property's fixed. And if it isn't, that they come in and solve it right away. All right. Now I want to tell you, we're going to get a bit more into Airbnb in a second, but with all of these things here, with dealing with these unruly guests that could cause lawsuits and extort you, there are no right answers. There are only spectrums, and everything is a gray zone. And it's constantly moving based on the sweeping changes decreed by Airbnb VPs. And Airbnb, by the way, is richer and more powerful than most of the world's governments. We're talking about a $78 billion market cap. They had $12 billion in revenue last year. And that's off of the 12% that they take. So really it's $100 billion of actual stays that went through hosts. And whenever somebody comes and stays, usually they're buying airfare, rental car trips, they're going to bars and restaurants. And so the ancillary business amounts that have been spent because of Airbnb per year is more like $300 billion totally spent on the trips, including Airbnb and Airbnb's revenue. And just for context, $300 billion, that's like the GDP of Egypt. This is like a major world power. We're talking about 10 times the GDP of El Salvador. And those guys are mining Bitcoins with power generated from volcanoes. So, I mean, fuck. No one is safe. The only solution is to take a strong position that is well calibrated, defensible, and well supported by facts and evidence, which is why you need to have the noise awares, you need to have the branded niche, you need to have your discount prevention team, you need to have strong SOPs that guide your actions. So now we're going to talk about Airbnb. Has anyone here heard about Airbnb's security and safety team? Hopefully not. Okay. Now, here's what I want to say about them. Their security and safety team, if there's a whisper in the wind, that the guests felt unsafe or they're unhappy and they said something, that the door locks didn't work right on the first try or something like this, They can escalate to the security and safety team, which has gotten increasingly more aggressive and wants to shut down profiles. In fact, there are a bunch of operators that are even bigger than me that are getting shut down. And I have a lawyer friend who has 200 arbitration cases where hopefully after a 6 to 9 month process, he will get those listings turned back on, but no one is safe and not all of them will get turned back on. And to make matters worse, instead of being in a court of law where you have a judge and jury that are predictable on some level because they're following some sort of laws, you've got a judge and jury that's like a virtual assistant maybe in the Philippines that's presiding over your case, not even realizing the context of the fact that you brought Airbnb $1 million in business last year. So, what is our solution? You got to have strong SOPs. You got to have the cameras. You got to have the noise aware devices. You've got to tell the guests every time that they commit a house rule violation, because then when they're trying to extort you or get you delisted, you can say, well, they had done house rule violations first, and really we've just been trying to regulate on them. And yeah, it's a major issue. But I've gotten through these a bunch of times now after getting having our listings shut down a number of times. And there's light at the end of the tunnel, because there's ways to solve it. But if you're going into this blind, this is a huge risk. Huge risk is a huge threat. Also, the algorithm. The algorithm can be your best friend or it can be your worst nightmare. Who knows what a dead listing is? Okay, so a dead listing is when you have an Airbnb that, for whatever reason, the algorithm decides we're going to shuffle you to the bottom of the deck, and we're going to see if anybody finds you down on page 5. And if you don't realize that you're down on page 5 and go in there and click on it manually, or have somebody that you know click on it manually to wake it up, they don't shuffle you back to the front of the deck, and they might leave you there for months. So all of a sudden, your listings go down, your bookings go down to nothing for a few weeks, and you're going to have to be vigilant. This is vigilance. This is managing your business, okay? And bad pricing. The pricing algorithm, Airbnb has taken a stance in the recent years, and it was actually, this is from something that was directly said in an interview by the CEO of Airbnb, and he said that hosts are making too much money, and that their goal is to try to reduce the price, and it's messed up. It's like Walmart coming in and undercutting everybody on pricing so they can own the market, and then they can scale up again. But in the meantime, the tree is getting shaken, and a lot of people are going to fall off that tree. So I do want to suggest something, and here's a tool. We use Guesty Pro for our property management software, our PMS. And they have a thing called demand pacing. And this is very important. And I want you guys to write it down. Demand pacing. If you're in this industry, you got to know about demand pacing. And if it sees that you have 10% occupancy, you can automatically add a discount off of what the suggested pricing would be. And that can also help wake up dead listings, first of all. Can help wake up dead listings. But it can also make it so that you get seen, and that when you need the extra business, it comes. All right. The last one is the law. You're between a rock and a hard place. 3 rocks and a hard place. And the law is the last one. But you know what? The law used to be a much bigger issue. The regulatory framework the lay of the land has kind of come out, and and the chips have fallen where they may to a certain degree. And some places are fiercely against short-term rental, like San Francisco, which ironically is where Airbnb was launched. And it's actually people like the government likes short-term rental in San Juan, but you need to get permits. You need to be in compliance. You need to understand code enforcement. You need to understand when there's quiet hours, and realize that your neighbors are the people that are going to turn you in. So you got to have good relationships with your neighbors. And then use permits. The best way to make sure that the government's on your side is to comply with it and be in compliance. Have the use permits. There's short-term rental permits, there's bed and breakfast permits, and there's permits of being an innkeeper, which we call guest house permits. Okay, and this is called use permits. And I really strongly suggest you get the right legal team, you get the right permit people, and you get the right political contacts. That's the solution here. So I hope I didn't scare you too much in this presentation. What we're going to do is we're going to open it up to questions for a few minutes. But I want to tell you the main solution that I want to give you is Dylan's Deal Room. And if you guys want to be in contact with me, go ahead and scan this QR code. Be in this group. We just launched it. I launched it specifically for the San Juan Social Club cruise. And there's a couple, there's obviously real estate chats out there, and I love them, and I use them, and Rio Rico is great, and and there's one that Preferred Mortgage does where they do commercial lending boot camps every week, and those are amazing. But my unique selling point on you guys, I'm not charging anything for this, so it's just I'm just providing this value add. And I want to network with people and whatnot, but there are some certain key elements of value that I know that I can provide to people that have questions, and I want to have this more of a structured format of the Dylan's Deal Room for us to be able to talk. It's on Signal, which is a really secure platform, and the main topics of discussion are structuring difficult deals, creative financing, and scaling your business, and also. And you can bring deals that you want to sell or that you want to be a middleman of, bring contacts to the table, recommend your handyman so that he doesn't go out of business, and other resources to bring to the table, lenders, lawyers. But I think the most important thing that I can help people with is dealing with overcoming the existential threats and getting their Airbnb profile shut down. So I hope you enjoyed this, and let's open it up to questions.